Hello, we are starting Unit 4. We have focused on the solar system and now we're zooming in on Earth, and we're going to be looking at a lot of different parts of Earth to finish out our Earth-space science, which is a lot. So this unit will be very large. We'll have a lot of different notes, but I'm going to break it down as easy as I possibly can. So the first thing, after you do all of your notes, so make sure that you have your vocabulary set up. There are 6 or 7 different lessons in this unit, so there are a lot of different definitions. So you're going to need enough space for 19 vocabulary words. So after that, so make sure you have that set up first, you're going to take this paper, and it's actually going to be glued on the back, and it is a little booklet here. And then the next thing you're going to do is, it's very similar. You are going to glue in that one. Okay, so pause it, come back. I'm going to grab my crayons and my colored pencils and meet you back here. All right, here we go. I have my wonderful Twistables here and my colored pens, and I am ready to move on. So I'm going to be using blue since we are talking about the water cycle. If you need to pause this video to catch up with the notes, please do so. Okay, so the water cycle. 75% of the Earth's surface, of the Earth, is water. Without water, we could not survive. Now, only a small portion of that water we can consume, because the majority of it is salt water. And salt water can do damage to our body because the amount of salt inside of salt water is too high for our body to digest and filter through. So 4 characteristics of water, 4 things that we could use to describe water. Color. Clarity means, is it clear? Is it cloudy? Are there things in it? Salt water is not as clear as fresh water. Salinity. Oops, get out of the way. Pencils, get out of the way. Salinity is how much salt. And taste. If you've ever had different bottled water and it's from different areas, or it's treated differently, or if you drank water from different natural resource like rivers and lakes, they do taste differently based on where they come from. So water is the lifeblood of organisms. Nutrients are distributed and waste products are removed through water. Right, I just have to color these little drops here. All right, there we go. Okay, so inside, we're going to talk about how we use water. So 5 ways that we use water. And this is not the only way that we use water. We use it to brush our teeth, to shower or bathe. We use it to cook, to eat, to drink. We use it for recreation, like swimming, surfing, skiing, snowboarding. Okay, Miss Ray, skiing and snowboarding is in snow. Well, snow is a form of water. How about hydropower, like in a dam? For electricity. We use it to put out fires. So for safety. So we really use water for quite a bit. Most of Earth's water is at the north and the south poles in the form of ice. Now remember, ice is water. If we put water in the freezer, what happens to it? It turns to ice cubes. Important to know, the amount of water has stayed the same over many of the years. However, the form or state of water is constantly changing. So throughout the water cycle, the water is not created or destroyed, it just moves through the water cycle continuously. So if you remember when we were talking about food chains, that the sun is the main, it is the source of all life on Earth. Remember that. We're going to be focusing on that for the water cycle because the sun works with the water cycle. The sun is the driving force of the Earth's weather. It is the major source of energy, which powers the water cycle. It's the sun. So that's another reason why the sun is the driving force behind all life. Okay, I'm going to use my green, my blue, my brown, and a black. Okay. All right, so pause, make sure you finish this, and then move over here. We're going to talk about different ways that we can get our water. We use our water from springs. Springs are underwater sources, underground sources of water. So you can color this if you need to. And I am actually going to just color the water parts, and then I will finish coloring it and show you when we are finished. So I'm coloring the water in here. This is a stream, which is a fast-moving river. A brook is also a stream. A creek is a very thin river. Okay. A river, like our river that we have close by. Our river actually feeds into the bay. So some parts of our river is actually brackish. Now brackish means that it is part saltwater and part fresh where it meets, because rivers are typically freshwater and the ocean is typically saltwater. So wherever it meets, it is something called brackish. Now a lake is a body of water that is surrounded by land on all sides. There can be some very large lakes, and there could be some that are so small that they're called a pond. Just like the Great Lakes, they are quite large. And then our last one is oceans. Now we know what oceans are. They come on the coastline, the beach, and oceans cover the majority of the world, and they are saltwater, and a lot of sea life lives in them. A lot. Okay. So I'm going to pause, I'm going to finish coloring, and I will meet you back here. Voila! Okay, so 2 classifications of water. We have salt water, found in oceans, and we have fresh water, it's our primary source of drinking water. Of that 75%, only 1% is drinkable. It's the fresh water. The water cycle has no start or end. It just continuously goes in a circle. Okay. When you are done, come back and then we will finish the next page. Okay, here we go. Here's our next page. Water moves through the earth and the atmosphere. Now, the atmosphere is what surrounds the earth and where our weather happens. So there are different parts to the water cycle. And you may have heard these words before. Evaporation is when water in a liquid form changes to water vapor, which is the gas form of water. So when the sun heats up the water on the ground, it turns it into a gas and it moves up into the air. So it looks like the water is actually disappearing, but it's just turning into a gas. So that is one step of the water cycle. Then the next step is condensation. This is when a cloud forms. So the sun heats up the liquid, changes it to water vapor, which is a gas. And condensation, once it gets up in the sky, it changes it from the gas back to a liquid form and forms clouds. So condensation is how clouds form. So the sun heats up the water as a liquid form. It changes it to water vapor, which moves up to the sky. When it gets up to a certain point in the sky, it actually starts to cool back down and it forms a cloud. Now the next one is called precipitation. Once there is so much weight in the cloud as it condensates, then it will become heavy enough to fall down to the earth and different forms of precipitation. So that could be ice, snow, sleet, rain, hail, which we'll talk about later on in the unit. And then once it gets to the earth, what happens? You guessed it, it starts to evaporate again. So that is our water cycle. Now, the ocean is our largest body of water. This is just a review, largest body of water. So because we're reviewing this, it is important to know. And it covers 75% of the earth. And the sun provides energy, and is the source of all life. That evaporates. Liquid water. And it also heats up land. Okay, so this is actually a booklet as well, so you're going to glue the back. So pause, finish this, and come back. I'm going to use several of my colored pencils. I'm going to actually use my blue, brown, green, orange, yellow, and gray, and possibly tan. All right, so come on back. Okay. All right, so this is a visual representation of what we were just talking about. So we start with the sun. The sun is the source of all life. So the sun is what starts the water cycle. And I'll finish coloring that in a moment. So the sun rays heat up the ocean and all other water on Earth. And then it turns to hot water vapor through the process of evaporation. Then wind happens and it turns to cooler air, which turns it into clouds through condensation. Then wind happens and it becomes even cooler and the precipitation becomes very heavy and it falls to the ground. Then we have something called runoff, where the water that does not evaporate can run off the side of mountains back into the water. Kind of like if you're dumping water down the side of a sandcastle and some of the water soaks in, some goes down, some evaporates. So it goes back into the ocean. And that's called runoff. The water runs off the side. Okay, so I am going to finish coloring this and I will come back. Oh, it is fabulous. Okay, here we go. The last one is transpiration. Now, transpiration, we're not going to focus a lot on, but basically it's when water vapor is exhaled from like a plant as they're doing their process of photosynthesis. So this is a little water vapors coming off of the plant. So we're just going to review the water cycle is the process by which water moves through the earth and the atmosphere. And our last thing is the ocean is the largest body of water on Earth, and it is 75% of the Earth's surface. I've said that probably about 5 or 6 times, so you can guarantee that that is important. So make sure that you know that 75% of the world is covered in oceans. So that is our notes on the water cycle.